Hey, welcome. This is Data Communications, CISK347. Hi, I'm Emmett Gray. I'm going to be your instructor for the course. So I'm going to go through a small PowerPoint slide presentation, basically to kind of give you a feel for the course. And let's begin. So, yes, this is Data Communication. I'm going to try my best to make this kind of interesting and informative and fun. Some of the material is going to be a little dry, so I may not be 100% successful making this entertaining, but I'm going to give it my whirl. So, this kind of is a whirlwind tour of everything you ever want to know about networking. And it is, a lot of the stuff is in a lot of detail. I mean, you know, protocols and port numbers, and I mean, down in the weeds, and a huge variety of topics. But don't panic, because I tend to concentrate on concepts and philosophies over, you know, making you memorize a bunch of stuff. So let's continue here. This is a 100% online course with video lectures, just like what you're seeing here. Some people are not familiar with video lectures. They think that all online courses are like self-paced and you just kind of do your own thing. You know, you look at some PowerPoint slides and you know, take some quizzes and stuff. That's not the way it works. I treat this just like a face-to-face course. In fact, this is identical to what you'd get from a face-to-face version of this course. The exact same lectures, the exact same assignments, the exact same quizzes, everything. So this is not a self-paced course. And just like in a real course, where you have to come to class, listen to lecture, and pay attention and take notes, guess what? That's the same thing here. Whenever you're watching the video lectures, you're going to have to be paying attention and taking notes. Okay. So, there aren't really any prerequisites for this course. You do kind of have to be kind of know a little bit about computers. I mean, if I talked about input and output, I don't want to get a blank look. But other than that, I think you're okay. The textbook is kind of a brand new one. This Business Data Communications and IT Infrastructure, 2nd edition. I will tell you that I tend to supplement an awful lot of the material. So a lot of the material does not come from the book. Somewhere around 20% of the stuff we're going to talk about is not in the book. So once again, if you think, it's an online course, I ain't got time to watch them dang videos, I'll just look at the book and I'll be good to go. No, you won't. You're going to have to be paying attention in class, just like a regular class. Obviously, we use an extensive use of Blackboard, since that's the format for these courses. Okay, let's talk about the course requirements. So, obviously, online course, everything's done in Blackboard, right? So, all the assignments are going to be done in Blackboard, quizzes, exams, everything. You're not going to be emailing me anything or anything like that. I mean, all the work is done from inside Blackboard. All of our communication is going to be done from inside Blackboard. Me making announcements and email back and forth and all this kind of feedback, all done within Blackboard. Which means, obviously, you need access to a computer, right? The Blackboard folks say, you know, Windows 7 and above. Quite frankly, I think any modern version of any operating system could handle it. It's just a web-based kind of a scenario. So you could be doing this on a tablet if you wanted. Windows 7 is actually preferred. And, of course, you can get copies of Microsoft Windows from the university. You do need a reliable internet connection. One of the worst things that can happen is, like, when you're in the middle of an exam and there's a thunderstorm and boop, you know, your internet goes out. I had a student who lived out in the boonies somewhere and was so afraid that they were going to mess up the internet. Her internet was so spotty that she actually drove to the university to take her exams. Okay, so yes, you need some sort of reliable internet. I am going to ask you to write some papers, not formal papers. You're just going to have to be answering a few things. And so I don't necessarily mean you need Microsoft Word, but you do need to be able to produce documents in Microsoft Word format. So either a doc or a docx format. And the university is still using Office 2010. But if you go to the Outlook portal, sign in through the Microsoft Outlook portal there at the university, there's a place where you can download Office 365. You get a free Office 365 subscription for being a student, okay? Which contains the entire Microsoft Office suite to include, Office and Excel and PowerPoint and all these guys. And it's the 2016 version, okay, not the one that the university is using. So that's a good deal. I may ask you to develop some network diagrams, and so typically I'd prefer it being PowerPoint or Visio format. I guess kind of sort of I'll take it on the back of a napkin provided you scan it, because I need to have an electronic version of this thing, and I need to be able to annotate, mark on it, and then give it back to you. So some PowerPoint or Visio would probably be the preferred technique. Okay. Expectations. So what do you expect out of this course? Well, I expect you're going to learn an awful lot of information, a flood of information on networking protocols, and not only am I going to ask you to be a sponge and soak all this stuff up, we're going to squeeze the sponge a little bit and have it leak out. I want you to apply that knowledge and theory that you picked up. So it's not just soaking it all up. And you do not need to be a computer expert to do well in this course. And it's certainly not my intention to, magically convert you into a computer expert. You can do really well in this course. It is technical, I'll admit, but you can do really well in this course by just paying attention and taking notes. Okay, so there's 14 chapters in the book, and this is a 16-week course, and I do 2 weeks of that is for doing a review, so it comes out exactly right. So essentially a chapter a week is what we're going to cover. And yes, this is ISO model. Very, very, well, I'll wait till we get to the course. Okay. I show this slide at all my courses, so let me just explain where I tend to spend my time and energy in teaching. Okay. So skills. Let's start with skills. Skills are things that you're going to get good at as you do them over and over and over. The analogy I always love is, I go to the archery range, and so I fire off an arrow. It's probably not going to hit the bullseye the first time, right? I mean, but if I kept at it over and over and over and over, I'd probably get better at it. Well, we're going to be hitting an awful lot of stuff in this course, but not really going to have that much repetition where you're going to get better and better at it. So we're not going to spend too much time in the skills area. In the abilities area, some people are just naturally better at things than others. I mean, some people are good at math, or good at computers, or good at music, and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, not as me as a professor, I can't change your abilities whatsoever. So I don't spend much time on that either. I spend all of my time on providing you the knowledge, the concepts, and background information, the kind of things you get by attending class or reading a book. So that's where I spend all of my energy. Now, in the old days, like when you took a geography class in the old days, they had you memorize like state capitals and stuff. And so, if somebody stopped you on the street and said, what's the capital of South Dakota? You could say, aha, I remember that. Well, that's not the way it works anymore. In the reality, if I stopped you on the street and said, what's the capital of South Dakota? The correct answer is, I don't know, I'll look it up. And you pull out your phone and you go, aha, it's Pierre. That would be the correct answer. Things have changed. So I don't spend a lot of my time making you memorize useless stuff. I don't want to spend too much time on what. Like, what's the definition of this term? That's something that you could Google with no trouble at all. So things like, oh, I forgot how to do something, or I can go get it online resources or help files or whatever. So when I'm doing a test question, very rarely will you ever have a test question that says, what is the definition of this term? Put it to you this way. If you could copy the question and put it in Google and get an answer, that's not the kind of question you're going to have on my exams, okay? I don't spend hardly any time at all on what kind of questions. Instead, my questions are going to be, given this scenario, explain why option A is better than option B. Okay, that's going to be the kind of questions that I'm going to be asking. I want to understand, do you understand? Not, can you regurgitate and find stuff. That's not a skill, okay? I don't really care how fast you are at Googling. That's not really what we're after. What I'm after is, do you understand the consequences? Do you understand why one choice is better than another? So it's all about understanding, not about memorization. Okay. Now, I'll admit, a lot of people think that my tests are hard. I'll admit that. Most likely it's because of this. Because my test questions are never, oh, let me go look on that book. Hey, that's on page 42. Yep, okay, got it. That's not the kind of test questions I write. I write test questions that make you think. Okay, just telling you. Let's continue. So let's talk about the course requirements. So there's going to be two tests, a midterm and a final. They're not comprehensive, meaning the midterm covers the first half and the final covers the second half. We are going to have an entire review session. I'm going to have an entire lecture period just doing the review and going over the topics that are going to appear in the exam. I'm going to help you study. Woohoo! There's going to be 6 quizzes. Typically, these things, I give you an hour to do them, but they usually take about 30 minutes. So 20 questions, and they appear a week in advance, so you have an entire week to do them. 7 assignments. And typically assignments appear in Blackboard about 2 weeks before they're due. And these assignments are going to be, do a little bit of research on this and answer. And I'm not asking you to write a formal paper for publishing in a scholarly journal. I'm asking you just, do you understand? So this could be, it has to be complete sentences. But, I'm not talking about, title page and references. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about 2 or 3 pages of, I've looked into this and a lot of my writing assignments are going to be almost like a role reversal. I'm going to ask you to explain something to me. Explain why MAC addresses are not useful on the other side of a router. Okay? So you're going to have to explain why that's the case. You're going to be teaching it to me. That's what these assignments are going to be about. So, exams, quizzes, assignments, and then we're going to have a participation score. And a participation score is basically, did you follow instructions? Every week I'm going to ask you to answer 4 questions in your journal, and we're going to have a session talking about how to do that in just a minute. So I'm going to ask you to answer questions in your journal, to introduce yourself in a forum. I'm going to ask you to take a practice exam. And so if you do what I ask you to do, you get a 100% on your participation. Kind of simple, right? Cool. Okay. Here's how the things work. I try to make these things about equal thirds, where exams, quizzes, and assignments are roughly the same. Exams 30%, quizzes 30%, assignments 35%, and your class participation, so to speak, is 5%. Okay, here's the schedule. And one of the things you probably can just look at this and tell is that there's something due every single week. Yes, every single week. The way it works is the work week, so to speak, starts on Monday. That's when everything appears. Monday in the wee hours of the morning is when all the video lectures show up. That's when the tasks show up. That's when the exams show up. That's when everything shows up. And then the following Sunday at midnight is when everything is due. So, for example, the syllabus quiz is due at 11:59 p.m. on August the 28th. So, once again, there's something due every single week. So just plan on it. You don't have to stop. You don't have to think. Every single week, something is due. Okay, this is coming up on the 15-minute mark. What I typically do is I make these videos less than 15 minutes because basically that's the attention span of a student, right? So just bear with me. We're going to pause and we'll pick this thing up again in just a few.